Hey everyone, it's Jade from Center Stage Magazine, and we're sitting here with the legendary Corey Feldman. How are you doing, Corey?
Fine. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. I know. I love this outfit. Tell me.
Thank you.
Got this whole getup going on with the hair and everything.
The hair and the outfit are sold separately.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't buy them as one piece. The jacket actually is a bit of a nostalgia in and of itself. It's a very famous jacket. This jacket is a movie star. It has appeared in several films. It was actually the jacket on the poster for Dream a Little Dream.
Oh.
It was also in The Burbs.
Oh my God.
And it was also in a movie that I did with Drew Barrymore and Tatum O'Neal called 15 and Getting Straight. It was a TV movie. And and then it got stolen and it became even more famous.
Who stole it?
Because, well, it's a long story. But I'll say this much. I was at a Steel Panther concert where I'd come up and I'd done a cameo. And it was after the performance and I was all sweaty and I went up to the dressing room and I was with the guys and we were all hanging out. And I took the jacket off because I was hot and it's really heavy. Yeah. So they said, do you mind if we let a couple fans in to take a picture? And I was like, sure, no problem. So we take a picture. And then next thing you know, there's like a couple more. And before you know it, there's 100 people in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we got to get out of here. It's hot. I can't breathe.
Yeah, exactly.
And I go and turn around to get my jacket, and it's gone.
Someone took it?
So I went and reported it to the Beverly Hills Police Department, and Michael Lohan happened to be there. And so we run into each other. We chit-chat for a minute. Well, of course, TMZ gets wind that me and Michael Lohan are both at the Beverly Hills Police Department in separate cases or whatever, but we're both there. And it turns into this huge story on TMZ about my stolen jacket. And then they're like, well, what happened to it? And then we asked House of Blues, and they said, oh, the security cameras weren't working that night.
Of course they weren't.
Yeah, exactly. Conveniently, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, there becomes a huge, worldwide, not nationwide, but worldwide search for this jacket. And there's literally, I go to England for an appearance, and these people are coming up to me, and they've got posters and T-shirts that say, wanted Corey's Dream a Little Dream jacket with a picture of the jacket.
It blew up into this whole thing.
This giant thing that literally became worldwide. Yeah. And then Darren Julian, who actually did Julian's auction for Michael Jackson when, they did the whole Neverland auction thing. So Darren Julian came along, and he had literally just a few months before that appraised the jacket at $100,000. So at that time, which was, now 7 years ago, it was appraised at $100,000.
Yeah.
Now, beyond that, he says, because it's worth so much, I'm willing to put up a reward of I think it was $5,000 or $10,000 for the missing jacket. So we waited 2 years went by. All of a sudden we get a call from TMZ, and TMZ says, we've got a guy who's calling from Boston. And this is true, from Boston, and he was at the Boston Marathon when the bombings happened. And he actually was the caretaker of the two children, or he did babysitting for them or something along those lines, of the two victims, the one who died, unfortunately, and then the other one who was hospitalized. So he was actually taking care of those kids. And it was I guess 5 minutes after it happened, he walked by the finish line, and it was just whoa. So, or right after it happened, something like that. But anyway, so we hear this whole story from, people at TMZ, and they said, you got to talk to the guy. So we got his phone number, we talked to him, and it turns out, he says, first we heard it was at a swap meet that he found it. Then I said, I'll tell you what, we're going to make, you a hero because it's such a worldwide issue. We're going to make you a hero. We're going to blast you everywhere, and we're going to fly you out to LA and do I've got this big concert, which I had at the time, which was at Exposition Park. And we did this giant concert for 5,000 people, and we showed the movie Lost Boys, and we flew him out, and on stage, he presented me back the jacket.
Oh my God. What span of time was this? How long did this take?
It was about 2 years from the time that I lost the jacket to the time that I got it back.
Yeah.
Now, on top of all that, so we do that, and we say, look, on top of that, we're going to raise proceeds from this concert and donate them to the Boston Marathon Relief Fund. So we did that. we kind of made him a national hero, for doing what he did and
Yeah.
bringing the jacket back and raising money to donate and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it ended up being a very good, happy story, with
Yeah.
some very sad circumstances.
Yeah, it was very long-winded, but at least it all came to fruition and it worked out. Now you have a
There
jacket
you go.
again.
What a crazy story, right?
I know. Oh my God,
Who
for
could
one
imagine?
jacket.
One jacket.
One jacket.
Yeah, so who knows what it's worth now? But
Who knows if you'll lose it again?
let's not say that. No joking now.
No jokes,
Jade,
okay.
No joking. Actually, I do wear it as part of my new tour.
Oh, yeah?
So the reason why it's out and dusted off, and
it out.
the fact that it's still all in one
I know,
piece
it
and
looks
in good
very
condition.
well taken care of.
You would never know that it was like taking a field trip around the world when
right?
I wasn't with it. But anyway, Jacket did its own tour. It's such a rock star, it's
now
done its
it's
own
back.
tours, and now it's on another tour. So but we do wear it when I perform the songs from Lost Boys and Dream a Little Dream. Well, at least for the mini tour, that's how it was. We're changing things up for the big tour.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but let's talk about what got you into acting. What made you think that's what you wanted to start doing when you were so young?
That never happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just happened?
No, my parents made me do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't advise
you
people
love it,
put
though?
their
Did you
kids
like
into
it?
the industry.
When you were younger, did
It's
you
a
like it?
very long,
I can imagine.
complicated
Yeah.
answer, but read my book.
I will read it. We're going to talk about the book,
Choreography,
choreography. Let's
yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, so it's all in there. And
all
if
in
you
there.
read the book, then you'll see the story of it. Yeah, there's a lot of stories to tell.
I can imagine you. Now, your book came out in 2013, right?
2012, I believe.
2012?
Yeah.
Okay, around that. So what made you want to write a book? You have all these stories. What made you think now is the time that I want to put it all in writing?
Well, that was just the first piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
So over time, I plan on releasing 4 books in total. So that was part 1 of the anthology, and then we'll put another one. And basically, number one, I felt that it was important that I got all this stuff out there while I still have a perfect memory of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because we're dating back, a long time. Not to date myself, but about 22 years. Okay. So anyway, we go back all the way to the beginning. We discuss everything and all the rumors and all the BS that's been put out there. I mean, more than anything, because I have a very close relationship with my fans. Maybe
As it
not
should be.
all of them. I mean, there's obviously millions of people around the world,
Yeah.
but when it comes to my core group, we call them the Feld fam.
Yeah.
And, it's on Twitter and it's on Facebook, and we've got this kind of network of these people who are all really wonderful, beautiful
And you're
people.
very interactive with them, too. I do see on Twitter you're always tweeting people and getting
Yeah.
back to people.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about. I mean, I think that these people, cherish you in a way, and you need to cherish them back, right? So I'm very proud of the fan base. And, they are, at the end of the day, what's kept me going. As you asked, did you ever enjoy it? Well, yeah, I did. But, at a certain point, I think I decided, okay, this is for me now. But
Yeah.
in the beginning, it wasn't for me.
When was that? When did
And
you see this is when it's my
After
time?
I came out of rehab,
Okay.
I think, because, I had my drug problems when I was a kid, and that only lasted 2 years. And then when I got sober, I went through this phase where it was like, look, I screwed up really bad. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'll ever get work again, or if I'm going to be in the business, or what am I going to do? Because I've done this my whole life. So
Yeah.
now what am
What
I
else?
if I don't
yeah.
have that? And I kind of had to get to this spiritual place where, you know what, whatever God's plan is for me is what will be. So if I'm not going to be what I've always been anymore,
Yeah.
then I'm okay with that. And I kind of had to deal with the idea, at least, of living a normal life, if that was
Yeah,
even
that was what's
possible.
gonna happen, yeah.
Fortunately, it didn't go that way, and
Yeah.
the career continued on.
Yeah.
But it did take years of rebuilding and getting people to actually take me seriously and know that I was, reliable and consistent and all those
Yeah.
things that you have to be in the industry. But on top of all that, my music career was always kind of growing alongside it. So it's always been a dichotomy and a duality in my life of on one side you've got this great acting career, and then on the other side you've got this kind of underground cult following of the music, but
Yeah.
never hit the mainstream. And now, this year, last 2 years, we've managed to turn all that around, and it's kind of done the reverse. Now people are coming up to me on a daily basis talking about my music, and the concerts are selling out everywhere, and the record sold more copies than anything I've ever released.
Oh, wow.
And the single, Go For It, is by far sold, way more than anything I've ever released. In fact, our first Billboard hit made it to number 32 on the Billboard Top 40. And on top of that, we released a vinyl record for Record Store Day just recently. And we sold 2,000 copies of vinyl at like $14 a piece.
Oh my God.
2,000 in one day.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy,
I would have
especially
never
now.
imagined,
Yeah.
that I could do that. But I mean,
But
I
you
knew,
can.
I knew I could, but it's one of those things like,
Will it kind of happen?
right, when you believe in a dream and you focus on that dream your whole life, you know in your heart what's supposed to happen and how it's supposed to be. But then you see it just not happen, and you get frustrated. And you're like, oh my God, will it ever happen? Is it ever going to come to fruition, or am I completely crazy? Is this reality, or is this my own made up reality? And then all of a sudden it starts to happen. You're like, okay, thank God I held on.
And you didn't give up, yeah.
Because that's the thing, is that, with my company, Corey's Angels, what we do is we teach this to young girls who are disillusioned, and, especially beautiful girls, because, beautiful girls, much like celebrated entertainers, get a lot of crap from people just because they're beautiful. And part of that is, this kind of domination, this feeling that they're never going to be able to be anything that they really want to be. They're never going to be able to really succeed because they're never going to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And that goes across the board from, business women to artists, right? Across the board. If you're hot,
You aren't taken seriously.
There's always going to be guys staring down your chest, and I know you know. I can tell you know. And you're a perfect candidate for what we do.
Thank you.
Because what we do is then we find the women who are so disillusioned and have so much potential and say, look, you can achieve anything if you really want to. You know what I mean? You're capable of really achieving anything. We make our own reality.
Yeah,
That's the bottom line. So, when we can teach girls that, like, hey, here's the tools that you're going to need, and let us pave the road for you of how to get the doors open. And all it takes at the end of the day, the magic piece of the recipe is self-belief, and that's the thing, unfortunately, that's lacking because they've been shot down so many times. Here's the analogy I always give. When a beautiful girl walks into a party, people assume, like, oh, that girl's so hot, I'm not going to go talk to her because she probably wouldn't even talk to me. She probably wouldn't give me the time of day, and I'm sure she thinks she's better than everybody else here. And they go and they prejudge and pre-assume those things, right? And then at the other side of it, here's the beautiful girl. She's like, I don't feel like anybody wants me here. They're all looking at me funny, like
they won't talk to me.
They don't want to talk to me. What's wrong with me? Do I have two heads? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like they're thinking that like everybody hates them and they're gross, whereas everybody else is thinking
it's all their self-esteem that gets
it's just
misconstrued and everything like that.
correct. So it's all about reversing that whole train of thinking and teaching girls like, hey, guess what? You've got the power because you've got the beauty. And if you have the talent, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
They're going to listen eventually. They're going to pay attention eventually. But you have to keep going. So the things that I've gone through in my life and the trials and tribulations, I now turn around and help others who, may not have that courage or may not have that strength by showing them, hey, look, if you work hard and you're the best version of yourself that you can be.
Yep.
And what we do at Corey's Angels is we give girls the opportunity for that. We help them, in a way that like, okay, sometimes we move them into our home. And when we move them into our home, then they get to have like 24-hour hardcore like lessons, I guess is the best way to put it. Because like, my wife and I, we treat our life in a very spiritual way. And we're always looking for positive solutions to everything, right? So the whole point is that, like, if we can help people understand that, all they need is positive energy and to, put kind of a block up against negative energy and not allow that in, then your self-belief starts turning around and all of a sudden you start seeing a better future for yourself. Yeah. And unfortunately, self-deprecation is like, the biggest killer of everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, all artists in general, but especially beautiful women. I've never seen more self-destructive people than the beautiful women that I've worked with over the 5 years with Corey's Angels. So, putting together the band, for example, for this tour, which, the Requiem is they have to be beautiful, they have to be talented, they have to be in great shape, they have to have a good outlook and spiritual, positive place in their life so that they represent Corey's Angels in the right way. And of course, they also have to know what to do as far as press and business and,
how to handle that kind of thing.
Exactly. Being a good example or a role model. So there's a lot that goes into it. And finding that dynamic of actually awesomely talented women who are that gorgeous but also have that much skill, because we want to make a point here. We want to make a statement. Every time people come to see us, there's the fans who know what to expect. But there's also a large group of people who don't know what to expect.
Because I was going to ask, because I've never really seen a live show of yours. So, like, what do you go to a show of yours and see?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so the point is that, there's people who don't know what to expect. And when they walk in the room, all of a sudden their jaws are on the floor because they realize these girls aren't lip syncing. We're not faking it. Like, this is real skill.
Yeah.
And what the show is, I mean, it's a wonderful time capsule through the history of my work, both in film and in music. And, many people don't realize the intense connection between the two, because a lot of people, they know my film career and then they kind of know my music career, or they've heard about it, or they're hardcore fans and they know everything I've ever done and they totally get it. Right, exactly. So, when you come to a show, we literally kind of give you a quick education of that history. Like, it starts off with this film, which is kind of like a 3-minute film, which was produced this great guy named Chris Canote. And he's got his own kind of film studio, production house. And so he edited this great montage together of like all the different music stuff I've done through the years, all the music videos I've appeared in, all the choreography I've done, all the films that I've done with my own music and stuff like that. So you kind of see like a historical point of view of like, wow, this guy's been around doing this forever. This isn't a new thing. So that's your introduction. And then from there, with the new tour, nobody knows this is an exclusive, but we're reformatting the show right now so that what it's going to be is like sections. There's going to be different sections for kind of different time periods. Oh, yeah. So they'll be like, we're adding like a rock and roll high school forever section, which nobody, has ever seen me do those songs live because I've never done them live, number one. And number two, there are no known recordings of that material anywhere. Right. I mean, it cannot be found. It doesn't exist because we gave it to a record company who produced the album or the movie, and they were supposed to put out an album and they never did. So therefore, they have the masters. Those songs are gone forever. Yeah. So, now we're like kind of piecing them back together and restructuring them so that we can play them live. So that's never happened. We're also doing like the first song that I've ever recorded, which was Something in Your Eyes with Michael Damian. And that was for the Dream a Little Dream soundtrack. And again, it didn't make it onto the soundtrack, but we released a vinyl single. Yeah. So that was my first single, and that was in 1988 or 89. So we're playing that song live for the first time ever. And we're doing, I mean, it's like a whole Dream a Little Dream section.
Like a journey, like an experience
throughout
your career.
That's what I'm saying. So we do like a Dream a Little Dream section, we do a Lost Boys section, we do a Michael Jackson tribute, we do a Corey Haim tribute, we do, we go through like some of the soundtrack films, so like the number one songs from the soundtrack albums, things like that. And then we also have, of course, the soundtracks that I did, which were either on the same albums or on different movies or whatever. So it's very exciting. There's just so much packed into one show. And then again, one of the amazing things, there's great costumes, great lighting, lasers, hoverboards, bubbles. There's just a lot. We do a lot of production. Yeah. But on top of all that, the most, I think, amazing part, and of course, a lot of dancing. Yep. This is a big dance tour for me. It's a lot of work. But that said, the best part, and I think the most exciting part to me, is to see what these women are capable of.
Yeah.
Because, we have, like, for example, the musical director is a beautiful woman who is a keyboardist, programmer, pianist, guitarist, violinist,
Yeah.
singer, songwriter, producer. So she does it all, right? One woman show right there. Her
Yeah.
name is Margot Lane. So she's one person on a stage of 6 people. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And then there's like my wife, and my wife, when I first she looks a little different now. Not quite as good, I'm gonna admit it. Anyway, so when I first met her, and she came into the Corey's Angels program. I mean, that's
where you met her?
Well, I met her at the Playboy Mansion,
Very
but
nice, very nice.
but yes, when we started hanging out, the thing was like she really needed to reshape her whole everything from mental to physical to she weighed 40 pounds more. She ended up going vegetarian and then vegan. Now she's doing like nutrition work for other people, so she helps from that aspect because she kind of does the health and nutrition aspect of what we do. But anyway, long story short, so from that, she originally came to me as a model, and she was like, I do modeling, that's what I do. And I'm like, do you have any other talents? Because, with Corey's Angels, we can't just promote the modeling because that's what everybody does, right? So you have to have a talent. And she's like, well, I did, take ballet, and I took piano, and I took all these things, but I haven't used any of that in years. Well, okay. Then she said, but I want to be a DJ. My goal is to be a DJ. And, my idol or whatever is like Skrillex, you know? And I know that Skrillex is, very fond of me, and we have a relationship. So I called Skrillex and said, hey, can we do something? So it started off where I was letting her DJ my events. And then that grew to the size of like, where now she's done like tons of celebrity events, and she like DJ'd, at an event with Skrillex. So she got to be on the same stage with him, making her dreams come true. But on top of it, for this tour, when we shot the video for Go For It, and we used her doing ballet, and everybody was like, wow, she's so incredible. Look at that ballet. So she did ballet. Then she DJ'd. Now she has learned to play piano. She brought back her old piano lessons, and she is now the pianist for the tour. So we have 2 keyboard players. There's the keyboard player, Margot Lane, who's the musical director, does all the synth stuff. And then we've got Courtney, who's doing all the piano stuff. So we've got that. And then on top of it, she's also now, like, literally one day I hear her singing in the shower or something. And I'm like, she's got a beautiful voice. Who knew? So now she's like singing. She does her own solo. I don't want to give away any surprises, but it's a song everybody knows. And she does a great job at it. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, every girl up there really brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, it's not just your average pretty girl that you find on the street. It's something that they build up towards, which is very cool.
Yeah, and even the young ones. I mean, like, we have like 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds that are in the band, but they're MI graduates.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? So even though they're young, the experience is there. Yeah.
Very nice. And before I let you go, let's just talk about your last album that you released really, really quickly. There are 2 CDs, right?
Yes.
You have a funk side and a rock side. Tell me why you wanted to do that.
It was an accident. Basically, it's another kind of long story, but I'll try and minimize it for you. Okay, so the way it started, and this album took a decade, literally a decade from the start to the completion and release. And the reason why is because I had released my my second solo album, which was called Former Child Actor. And a few years later, I started recording some demos for another pop album. So I recorded like 5 or 6 songs, and they were really great songs. And then I started working on a show called The 2 Coreys. And while I was doing The 2 Coreys, I obviously, I had to put the music aside. And then I also went and did the second Lost Boys and a couple other films. So I just, a couple years went by, I got distracted. And then on The 2 Coreys, the therapist suggested that I wrote a song for my father. So I wrote this song for my father. And when I did that, I read it back. I was like, this song is great, but it's a truth movement song. It's not a solo song. So I gave it to the band, but then I thought, well, it's so good, and I haven't written anything for truth movement in a while. I'll write a few more. So I wrote a few more. Next thing you know, 4 months later, I've got this epic album that
Yes.
features John Caron and Scott Page from Pink Floyd, Mark Caron from Grateful Dead and Rat Dog, and Storm Thurgeson, you know, Pink Floyd's legendary artist who did all of their album covers, designed all of our artwork, the packaging, everything, all the materials. So we got this like great, amazing project, and I was so
Yeah.
excited. And we went out and we toured it for 2 years, and then I did a bunch more movies, and all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, what about that album I was working on? I was working on that solo album before I did all that. So I had to circle back to it and see which songs were still okay and usable and which ones needed some polishing and whatever. But I got them back. And then we recorded a whole bunch more because I built a studio in my home.
Oh, very nice.
So when I built the studio in my home, I kind of went crazy and I just started experimenting and playing. And next thing you know, I've got Fred Durst sleeping on my floor, and I've got, everybody. I mean, literally everybody came through this studio. Will.i.am was there, Mariah Carey, all these people were there. And then we put together just like basically a fun homemade album with the girls, with the Angels, and with friends, and we just made this album. And so at the end of it, I'm like, okay, well, the earlier songs, are more kind of on the rock side, and these songs are more on the dance EDM side, and then there's a couple like hip hop things because I've got Corrupt, and I just decided to make the whole thing a double album with like a musical journey.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. So from start to finish, you literally kind of travel through all the different sounds and styles of music that are popular in contemporary music. So you start off with some EDM, and then it goes into like a little hip hop phase, and then it goes from the hip hop into like funk, and then funk into rock. And so that's kind of how it works. And then obviously the funkadelic side is the EDM, the hip hop. And then the rockadelic is the, R&B, blues, rock, that kind of stuff.
Well, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for sitting down.
Not
with me.
enough. Come on,
I feel like I kept you forever. And where can we follow you on social media?
Okay, you can follow me at Corey_Feldman for Twitter. CDog with double G, of course, 22 on Instagram. And for Facebook, there's a lot of fakers out there. So to find the real Corey Feldman, you have to write, at the search bar at the top, http www.facebook.com/Corey Feldman 2. So if you just put Corey Feldman 2, that's the real Facebook. Then we've got Corey's Angels Twitter. Which is at Corey's Angels. Corey's Angels Instagram, Corey's Angels Facebook page. And then we've got Angelic to the Core, which is the album page, which covers everything to do with my music. We have a store. We're selling the music, merchandise from the tour, all that kind of stuff. Plus, it's got all the tour dates listed and links so that you can buy tickets to the tour. Then finally, there's my homepage, which is CoreyFeldman.net. We have got a lot of presence on the internet.
I know. Goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you, Corey Feldman, for sitting down with me.
Absolutely. And I can't wait
Absolutely.
to see where your career heads to.
Thank you so much.
Yes, good luck.